that we're going to talk a little bit, and really what this webinar series is about. We want to highlight some of the MOSs, or the military occupational specialties, that the Army is most in need of and most searching for, and are most aligned with these bonuses that we're offering in terms of the Army National Hiring Days. So our first guest today that we're going to highlight, who will be our guest speaker, is Sergeant Major Jeffrey Morris, who holds a PhD and currently works at the Cyber School at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Sergeant Major Morris was born in northern Indiana, moved around the country as a family of a military family, or a child of a military family. He enlisted in the Army in September of 1984 and went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic training as an 82 Charlie, which I'm probably one of the only people in the Army as a field artillery officer who knows what an 82 Charlie is, the old pad systems. So he has had a huge career serving in the active Army, Army Reserve, and the Air Force Reserve, in a lot of units, branches, and positions, to include the first Sergeant Major of the Army Cyber Institute, and currently is the Cyber Proponent Sergeant Major and the Office Chief of Cyber at the Army Cyber School at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Sergeant Major Morris, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to you telling us about all the opportunities for cyber warriors.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the great introduction. Thank you for all participating. Like the Colonel said, Sergeant Major Jeff Morris. I work down here at the U.S. Army Cyber School at Fort Gordon, Georgia. My role is I handle the careers of all of the enlisted soldiers in MOS's 17 Echo, which is our electronic warfare specialist, and our 17 Charlies, which are our cyber operations specialists. So basically my role is making sure that when a soldier comes in, they have a path from private all the way up to sergeant major, managing the force and making sure that everyone has all of those opportunities. Today I'd like to talk to you about those two MOSs. They're both growing. They are highly technical, probably some of the most technical MOSs in the Army today. First, I'd like to highlight 17 Echo, Electronic Warfare Specialist. It is a job and career field that is changing dramatically from what it has been in the past 10 years. So now we have new accessions. You can come in off the street, go through Army basic training, and then report to Fort Gordon, where we have a 26-week course where we teach the fundamentals of radio propagation, mathematics, programming, software-defined radios, and other topics that tie into cyber operations, so that our electronic warfare specialists can work hand in hand with our cyber operations specialists. Like I said, it's growing. The Army is going to have a need for over 500 new electronic warfare specialists over the next year, and then it's going to grow beyond that. It is a career field that over the last 15 years or so has become very small. Army has realized there's a need for it. So as we adapt and change, as we always do in the Army, we have found that there is a pronounced need for that. So we're paying bonuses, a lot of bonuses in the career field. And one of the things I'd like to point out is, Colonel talked about certifications. Army has a new program started just this year where it will pay for civilian certifications if they fall in line with the career field that you pick. And ours being very technical, there is, for our 17 Echoes, there's some 20-odd certifications that the Army will pay for you to go to training and take pay for the exams as well. So it's an exciting career field, very exciting to be part of, in my role of determining what it looks like, who gets how many and what and where. So hand in hand, it goes with my other MOS, which is Cyber Operations Specialist. I think everybody's heard about cyber these days. We come in two flavors. Here in the Army, we have offensive cyber operations and we have defensive cyber operations. Pretty simple. Those in the offensive side, yes, they're the ones that reach out and touch others, as we say. They're a very small group, highly trained. That particular career field ends up getting 47 weeks of training, split between Florida and here at Fort Gordon. And from there, we start from the very basics of networking all the way up into using the most cutting edge tools, some of which we write here for ourselves. We have our own software developers that write tools for our operations specialists to conduct offensive operations, and we do defensive as well. We defend Army networks, we defend Army units, and if called upon, we help the rest of the U.S. government defend itself in the cyber realm. It is a intense 47 weeks, a lot to learn, a lot to do when you get done. Again, there's a lot of civilian certifications, part of that Army certification process or program that we talked about earlier. There's some 47 certifications that fall in line with MOS 17 Charlie, but along with lots of training and lots of opportunities, the requirements for the two are fairly tough. The ASAP scores for 17 Echoes, you have to have a 105 or better in most of your skill sets, our sub-tests, and then for our 17 Charlies, you have to have a GT of 110, and then our STs are up at 113. So if you're interested in either career field, yes, math, computer knowledge, and basically a propensity for wanting to learn new things, learning all the time. Cyber doesn't stay still. It operates at the speed of light, as we say. So absolutely amazing career fields, absolutely amazing individuals that do the job for the Army and for the government. And hopefully this short introduction will give you an idea of some of the highly technical things that we do day in and day out in America's Army. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. That was a great rundown. And, I think that it is pretty obvious to anyone who's watching that a lot of the national security competition that goes on a day in and day basis is happening in the cyber realm, and it's happening in the virtual space. And so the Army has a need for highly talented, highly trainable young men and women who are interested in this cutting field. And you talked about all of the certifications and training that you go through. And so I think it's a great MOS specialty for the Army to highlight during the Army National Hiring Day. And we appreciate everything you're doing down at Fort Gordon to set that, the structure of the Army Cyber Command up for success. So thank you, Sergeant Major Morris. All right, we're going to move on now to Staff Sergeant Adam Sparrow, who is a cryptologist linguist. All right, 35 papa. Definitely, I would not have been accepted into that one. I don't know if your first week of training is just learning how to say that word, but let me tell everyone a little bit about Sergeant Sparrow. He was born in, is it Keokuk, Iowa? How do you say that, Sergeant Sparrow?
Keokuk, Iowa, sir.
Keokuk, Iowa. He moved to Tennessee as a young child and spent the rest of his time growing up in Johnson City, Tennessee. Sergeant Sparrow enlisted in the Army in 2011 and attended basic combat training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, which is one of 4 places that new enlisted soldiers will go to execute basic training. Sergeant Sparrow went to his AIT in Monterey, California, so his advanced individual training for a cryptologist linguist. He spent 2 years working as an intel analyst at Fort Benning, Georgia, and then the last 5 years with 7th Special Forces Group in Destin, Florida, right there on the Panhandle. While there, he deployed twice to Afghanistan and was stationed overseas in Trinidad for a 3-month period, which is really cool. And then now he's assigned to the Edison Army Career Center. And so today to talk to us about some of our intel options is Staff Sergeant Adam Sparrow from the Edison Recruiting Station. Sergeant Sparrow?
Hey, sir, thank you very much for that introduction and also for hosting us today, because I think this really is a great opportunity to let people know the sorts of different jobs we have to offer and hear from people who have actually been in those fields. So that's a real added plus benefit for people. As was said, I'm Staff Sergeant Adam Sparrow. I did join out of Tennessee. I actually received my bachelor's degree prior to joining, and I joined mainly for the experience of being in the Army, because it is such a great experience. You get to see so many places and meet so many people from different cultures and backgrounds that, honestly, growing up in Tennessee, I didn't really have that opportunity to do. And then also for me, as getting my bachelor's degree to be a history teacher, it was an added benefit that so much of history is, military based and knowing about other countries and cultures. So this really enhances me for my second career after the Army, so that I can even be an even better teacher and have something to fall back on to explain to my students why it is that maybe soldiers act in a certain fashion or militaries perform functions in a certain fashion. So I am a 35 Papa cryptologic linguist. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what that means, but be mindful that it is a job that requires security clearance, which is also a benefit on the outside because that also allows you to work for other government organizations after your time in the Army is complete. But because it is a clearance-based job, I have to speak sort of in generalities. I can't really tell you exactly what I do. So what I do is I identify and analyze foreign communications. I then provide transcriptions and translations for those communications. And then I recognize changes in transmission modes so that I can support tactical units that are out in the field or support government agencies that collect intelligence over time. So my training, after basic training in the Fort Jackson, I went to Monterey, California to the Defense Language Institute. While I was there, I didn't know a foreign language, but I came in and I was assigned Spanish. The way that you get assigned a language is when you join, you take the ASVAB, as the Sergeant Major discussed, like you do for any job. But then for a language-based job, such as 35 Papa, you take the DLAB, which is the Defense Language Aptitude Battery. Your score on that test, which is basically a test that determines your ability to learn a foreign language, your score on that test determines what language you're assigned. So your training can last anywhere from 3 weeks if you come in and you're already fluent in a language, up to 52 weeks in the language school. Now, those 52-week classes are really cool. You've got Mandarin Chinese, we have Russian, we have Korean, we have French, Italian. All the Middle Eastern languages are offered there. Any language pretty much that you can speak. Some you didn't even know existed until you actually get there and you start seeing some of the courses that are offered. I was actually glad that I got Spanish because that's also something I earned an associate's degree from DLI for. And on the outside, that's another resume builder for me when I'm looking at civilian employment. So at the completion of my training, for mine, it was a 9-month Spanish course to become fully fluent. 1 month of that time was spent in Puerto Rico doing a immersion training where I actually got to deal with real people speaking Spanish. After that, I was assigned to the National Security Agency. And as a 25-year-old person, I was actually able to work on reporting that was included in presidential daily briefs. So it's a pretty neat thing when you're there. If you work on anything that gets briefed to the president, you get an email saying, hey, this is actually going up to the president's desk. It's included in his daily briefing, and he's going to, know this information and he knows where it comes from. Another thing I got to do when I was, my mid-20s was brief members of Congress who and their staff who would come to authorize our authorities, which is a yearly thing. I actually got to brief members of the staff of the late Senator John McCain, so that was like a great honor for me, as well as many other congressional leaders on both the Democrat and Republican side. Following my time at the NSA, I enjoyed my time there, but I wanted to get out there and do some real, Army stuff out there in the field, kind of get that experience, because that's why I really joined. So I went to airborne school, and while at airborne school, I got qualified to jump out of airplanes, which is a really fun thing to do. And the nice thing about that is anytime you get training from the Army pays for it. So you're getting extra money just to learn another skill. So it's a pretty cool thing. And after that, I went to 7th Special Forces Group, where I was assigned to work with an SF team. So we do some missions where we go to places like Afghanistan, where we go as a large unit and we work together. We do others, like as mentioned in Trinidad, where I actually go there. I was there for 3 months, and I was assigned to the U.S. Embassy there. And I actually work hand in hand with the U.S. Embassy to provide intelligence support that supports not only the United States, but our friendly partners such as Trinidad, and helps them manage their intelligence operations within their country. So those are experiences that if it wasn't for the Army, if it wasn't for this MOS, I never would have had that opportunity. And it adds a lot of depth to my life. A lot of people talk a lot about, serving your country, which that is something we do. But there's a reciprocity to that service. And what I see with it is all the things I receive from that service, educational benefits. Since I've been in, I already have my bachelor's degree, but I'm working on my master's degree now. And I've also, as a teacher, been able to work towards getting certified in other parts of the social studies course. So I had my history degree. Now I'm certified for economics, for government, and geography. Also, just the life impact, the changes in my life because of joining the Army in this job. Because I learned Spanish, it opened up my whole network of friends. And to see sort of what's available to me out on the outside in terms of I grew up in a very, I guess, secluded rural environment. And now I have friends, I have friends from Asia. I have friends from Latin America. I have friends from the Middle East. I've met all these people, learned all these different cultures that just completely changed my outlook on things. And because of that, it just keeps opening more doors for me. And I think that's what it does for a lot of people in the Army. And I think that's why this is just a good option for a lot of people. If you have any other questions, sir, if not, I'll pass back to you.
Hey, thanks, Sergeant Sparrow. And so let me just run down, right, for everyone listening, right? So Sergeant Sparrow joins the Army, right? Bachelor's in history, gets military experience, right? Speaks multiple languages, has a secret clearance, jumps out of airplanes, and has traveled the world doing it, right? So, and gets paid the whole time, particularly sometimes for some of those things, special pay, right? That's a good rundown. Thanks, Sergeant Sparrow. Great career, great opportunity in the Army, and you guys do a huge service for commanders all over the world. So I want to remind everyone that if you have any questions, I know 2 are in there right now. You can go to the question and answer. Go ahead and type in your answer. At the end, when we go to Q&A, we'll try to get as many answers as possible. And then if not, someone will reach out to you and we'll get that answered. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce Sergeant First Class Tedrick Lyons, who is a 74 Delta specialty, which is chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear specialist. Sergeant First Class Lyons is from Fort Smith, Arkansas. I've actually been through there twice, transiting the world. Very beautiful, right there on the river. He's 39 years old. He's married with 3 children. He joined the Army April 12th of 2004, and he served in the Army in a variety of positions and locations for over the last 16 years, right, which include Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and Fort Shafter, Hawaii. Sergeant Lyons has served as the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear specialist and non-commissioned officer in charge, and he's currently assigned to the Upper Darby Army Career Center out there in Western Philadelphia. Sergeant Lyons, thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for that great introduction. Good morning, everybody. As he stated, my name is Sergeant First Class Lyons. I'm a 74 Delta chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear specialist. In short, we call it CBRN. So we have to keep saying every one of the names each time that we get ready to tell what it is that we do. So CBRN, what it is that I do as a CBRN specialist or a CBRN NCOIC. The difference in the two is really no difference. The CBRN specialist, from the pay grades of E1 to E4, you are considered a CBRN specialist. Once you make your sergeant and above, you are considered a CBRN non-commissioned officer in charge. So it's really no difference. It's the same thing. Just pointed that out. What it is about what we do, we are defending the country against the threats of the CBRN weapons and also weapons of mass destruction. And how we do that? We maintain our equipment. We keep accountability of the equipment. We train our military personnel, including civilians and military personnel, how to operate our equipment, how to protect themselves in a chemical attack, how to decon themselves in a chemical attack. Also, we set up with different partners, different agencies, depending on where we at in the world at that time when that chemical attack may come down, or that nuclear attack or radiological attack. We set up using our J-Warren systems. We plot how fast the chemical may be moving through the area, what resources is going to be affected by that, what resources we can need to bring in to help that community, not just help our people in the area, but help the whole community as a force. So what it is that helps us out is that we have different entities inside the CBRN realm, including the Stryker NBC reconnaissance team. We can deploy them into a chemical area. They actually can go into the area in their Stryker vehicles and set up and actually take samples in that area while being sealed off and safe inside that vehicle, and determine what it is that they were attacked with at that point, and send that information back to us in real time. Also, we have a bids unit. The bids unit teams can also do the same thing. The only thing that is they can't send the information back to them in real time, but they can actually go in, deploy inside that chemical area, and be locked off into a Humvee type situation and do all the testing and everything that's needed. CBRN specialists, we are an entity to where we don't stay in one unit as far as like just a chemical unit. We do have chemical units, but we usually get put out into other units. We get put out with infantry. We get put out with military intelligence. As the Sergeant Major was saying, the cyber warfare, we get one person gets attached to each one of those different units. So we are the CBRN experts, and we are training them, making sure they are ready to go in case of a chemical attack. They are able to decon their weapons. They are able to decon their equipment. Not only that, if they're not able to do that, we are able to facilitate with them and get a team in there to help them do that. We are the eyes and ears to the commander of that unit. We speak to them directly and let them know what is going on, how they can mitigate casualties and stop the flow of this chemical and mark this chemical attack if that was to happen. Some of the things to get into this field, career field, it's entry-level career field. You do have to have a secret clearance for this career field. You also have to score 100 on your skills section of the line score of your ASVAB test to be in this career field. The training is at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where you will go through 10 weeks of basic training and then 11 weeks of training. The training also consists of you actually being exposed to actual nerve agent at Fort Leonard Wood. It is a prerequisite for you to graduate. You will actually go into a chamber that is built there. It has been running for many, many years with no casualties since I have been in the Army, and since some of my counterparts that came before me has been in the Army. You actually are exposed to actual live nerve agents in that chemical chamber, just to prove to you that your equipment does work, to show you and give you confidence that your equipment does work, and you can be able to tell your counterparts that, hey, I actually did it. So what I'm briefing you is actually going to work and actually is going to save your life. Every time you go to a NCOS school, which is every time you move up in rank, and when you go to sergeant, you have to go to advanced leader school. You will attend that course again. When you go to senior leader course, you will attend that course again. It's just recertifying you that the equipment that they are building will work and hold up in a chemical attack. Some of the other things in the Army Reserve, the Army Reserve chemical teams, they are tasked with going out to COVID-19. They actually, the 3rd Brigade in Indiana was tasked to set up a test site for COVID-19, which is a good thing because we have equipment that can protect us from the elements. We actually use respirators, and we are sealed off for 4 hours at a time. So that is a great way to use them besides a chemical environment. Also, the Army Reserves also do football games. They do soccer games. They are tasked with looking for precursors, looking for different little clues that somebody's want to attack one of those games or anything like that, using their different types of equipment and being able to foil the enemy's attack before it actually happens. There are so many different entities that you actually can be in part of inside the CBRN, not just a CBRN specialist. You also can be a Lima 1, Lima 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Just to break those down, a Lima 3 is a technical escort personnel. And what do? They are the subject matter person that goes into an area. And again, they're looking for precursor of they don't know what's going on in that building when they went in. The person has already left there. They done built a bomb. They ready to attack. So they go in, they look for what could have been made. They looking for, they have rice over here. They looking for trip wires or little bitty wires, shavings and things like this over here. So those are the subject matter experts with the Lima 3. And then you have Lima 6, which is, like I told you before, is the NBC striker reconnaissance team. They can deploy it actually into a chemical area that has been attacked and actually set up that striker to do a test, and then sending it up real time, potting into our J1 system, which would give us more information, information actually giving us eyes, and we can see in the area without being in that area. This is a great opportunity. Like I said, you get to travel, go to different places. I was stationed in one place that he didn't tell you I was stationed in. I was stationed in NATO in Norfolk, Virginia. So I got to work with some of the different CBRN from different countries, like Jordan, Germany, just to get their feel on how they do the operation and take some of their TTPs and information and probably incorporate it into ours, and then they do the same with our information. So it's all around joint collective, great MOS. I love doing it. I wouldn't change my MOS. And if you, with any other questions that you may have, thank you very much for your time.
Sergeant Lyons, thank you so much. Right, and you know what you said kind of up front. One of the things that I'm always envious with the chemical, bio, radiological, nuclear guys is, you know, those opportunities to work with other governmental agencies, other countries. You know, that's not something that, you know, every job in the Army has this opportunity to do, because there is sometimes, as you were mentioning, you know, the threat of CBRN, the threat of those types of incidents aren't always related just to military operations. That, you know, that could be something that's occurring in the civilian world, you know, like you mentioned, some high profile events like that. And so you also gain a lot of certifications that there is a translation to that on the outside because of those certifications. And so,
oh yes, sir. Speaking
yeah.
of that, I've got that part, sir. Also, we, coming in, you also, once you get to the sergeant level, you also receive 6 hazmat certifications that you can take back into the community and actually use once you leave the military service as a CBRN. And each one of those hazmat certification is going to last through your military career as they update it. You also receive different certification from those different areas that I told you about, the Lima 1, Lima 2, and Lima 3, and Lima 4, 5, and 6. You receive different certification for those. I don't know exactly which ones you receive because I haven't went through those schools yet, but you do receive certification to take back to the civilian world.
No, it's awesome because it just also speaks to the Army. It's like, look, we've certified you to do this job. We're paying you to do it. We're excited. But by the way, here's some schools for you to continue to go to continue to build your skills and grow those skills over time. So thanks so much, Sergeant Lyons. Reminder to everyone, if you have a question, go ahead and put it into the question and answer box, and we'll try to answer them at the end, or someone will reach out to you after the episode is over. All right, moving on to Staff Sergeant Daniel Morales, who is a 11 Bravo infantryman. He is working out of our Cottman Avenue station there in the northeast Philadelphia. Sergeant Morales happens to be originally from Philadelphia, and I can see right there in his background the Flyers jersey hanging up there, right? I'm also from the area, so a huge Flyers fan. He attended basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia in 2006, and then that's his follow-on advanced individual training was also at Fort Benning. He has served in the infantry for 10 years with the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum and the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg. And he spent the last 3 years assigned to our Cottman Avenue Center there in Philadelphia. So, Sergeant Morales, please tell us about your career.
Thank you for that introduction, sir. I appreciate it. Just to clarify a little gap there. So I did join the Army from 2006 to 2009. I did get out for a stint, about 4-year stint, and I missed it so much I decided to come back in around the beginning of 2013. So I just wanted to, clear that up just in case anyone started doing math on, wait, he went to basic training in 2006, but it's 2020. How has he been in for 10 years? So just clear that up. But anyways, so today I'll be talking about the infantry, right? So one of the most coveted jobs in the military in general. I think when everyone thinks of the infantry, I think their first thought of the military, at least when I first joined, I thought that was the Army. That was the military is joining. You're just going to go off and fight. And that's your whole military experience. Joining the infantry for me was one of those things where I knew that I wanted to push myself in a way, you know, especially growing up playing sports, playing baseball, playing ice hockey, being on track in high school, all these different levels of physical, or, you know, this physical aspect of my life up until that point. So I knew I wanted to do something physically demanding, and but you know, the infantry in the United States Army is so multifaceted. You know, you go to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. You do your infantry training there, and then after that, you get assigned to one of the Army divisions around the United States or even overseas. There, as a private, as a lowest level infantryman, you learn the basics, everything ranging from first aid, land navigation, troop leading procedures, battle drills. You know, even at the lowest level as an infantryman, you're expected to be a subject matter expert in warfighting, essentially, right? So you're put to the test in every aspect of this job. You know, you're expected to be a critical thinker. You know, it's one of those things where, especially in combat, you know, you're at a squad level, team level, platoon size level, doing a combat patrol. You're expected to be a critical thinker. You never know what's going to happen. So there's just so many different, you know, like I said, not to sound redundant, aspects of this job. Being able to stay focused under extreme duress is, you know, especially in high stressful situations, you know, I believe is very valuable in any type of setting, the civilian sector, the military sector. You know, so accompanied with my job, there are a lot of schools in the Army offered, especially to combat MOSs, infantry being one of them. I've had the opportunity to go to air assault school, learning how to rappel out of helicopters, doing sling loads. I've had the opportunity to go to airborne school, learning, you know, I learned how to jump out of airplanes. I was assigned to an airborne unit. So in the infantry world, there's different, how do I put this? The infantry is so vast and so diverse. We have mechanized infantry, we have light infantry, we have airborne infantry. I was able to be in a light infantry unit when I first served with 10th Mountain, and then served in an airborne infantry unit when I served with the 82nd Airborne Division, and learned all of the airborne operation aspect of my job as well. I'm currently trying to finish school and earn a bachelor's in environmental science. I'm about 2 years done. When speaking of how being in the infantry can carry over to the civilian sector, it's not necessarily the particular job carrying over to the civilian sector and being an infantryman in the civilian sector. It's what being an infantryman in the Army, the things you learn as an 11 Bravo. We're just, in my opinion, you know, I think in a combat MOS, especially in the United States Army, everything is amplified in terms of readiness, in terms of discipline, in terms of just getting after it, and having that no fail sense of no matter how hard the mission is, how impossible it seems. In being in a combat MOS, especially being an infantryman, it's just finding a way to do it and just not failing, not taking failure ever, you know. So it's just one of those things where I think can definitely carry over to the civilian sector. I plan on staying in 20 plus years, you know, or as long as the Army is going to allow me to stay in. And one day when I do hang up the uniform and I do leave and do get back into the civilian sector, you know, I'll think about getting into whatever degree field I'm pursuing now. But and yeah, so sir, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Sergeant Morales. So, you know, a couple things, right? So you talk about, you know, the infantry skills, and you named all that stuff: physical fitness, discipline. You know, two that come to mind right off the bat thinking about infantry is, you know, number one, you're a member of a team, right? You can't
Absolutely.
do that job if you're not a member of that team. And I'll tell you, you talk to business leaders, civic leaders, educational leaders as I go around our footprint, around our area. And it's these kind of soft skills, right? Discipline, accountability, leadership, being a member of a team. That is what the infantry is all about. And then I'll tell everyone, you know, I'm a I'm a field artillery officer, right? You know, field artillery is mine. You know, we've got a linguist on here. We've got a a CBRN chemical biological specialist. Even Sergeant Major Morris, the cyber. The entire Army is designed around supporting that guy right there, right? It's the whole thing is about supporting the infantry, units, which are the central fighting formation of the Army, and we're all here in support of that. So, if that's something you're interested in, being, the center of what the Army is all about, the 11 Bravo or infantry career field is what that is about. We all know that. Everyone in the Army knows that.
Absolutely, sir. And I'll be the first to say we could not do our jobs if it wasn't for all the other MOSs supporting us, from us maneuvering squads or teams down to the lowest level on the battlefield. It'd be pretty hard to do our job without the support of everyone else. So definitely you're spot on about that, sir.
Awesome. All right. Listen, great. That is wonderful. All right. So I know we got some time for questions, and then I'm going to just wrap this up here. And so there's a question that's kind of in the comment box. Let me see here if I can do this correctly. So, yep. So it's the same thing. So I think this one is for Sergeant Sparrow, and I'd be interested in your answer. So obviously you entered the Army with a 4-year bachelor's degree, and with that would potentially be the opportunity to commission, as an officer. Is there a reason why you decided to take the route of the non-commissioned officer and continue building the skills like you have?
Sure, sir. Thanks for asking the question. That's actually one I get from a lot of people. So the big thing for me was I had a specific job in mind, which was this field, the 35 BAPOG cryptologic linguist. And I wanted to have control over doing that job because that's what I really felt good about. There's a lot of people, not only in my job, but throughout the Army, that actually have their bachelor's degrees and are enlisted. I think that's something, sir, that a lot of people maybe don't realize is how the Army really prioritizes education. Even on the enlisted side, if you want to go far in the Army, you have to continue your education. And it only benefits you because when you get out, now you have that extra thing to fall back on that you can use. So that's the real reason why I went this way. And then also just the fact that I'm a teacher by trade on the outside. So what better way than to join enlisted, become a non-commissioned officer where the biggest duty you have is training your soldiers. So it's just a nice transition for me. And that's why I chose it, sir.
I mean, great answer, and I mean, Sergeant Major Morris is on here, right? And I'll just tell one quick story, and then maybe Sergeant Major Morris, you have something about, about the continuing education in the Army. So I have a master's degree. I'm proud of that, right? I've worked hard to get that, right? So my last unit, I was commander of a multiple launch rocket system battalion at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And one of our first sergeants, he was a 13 Delta, or 13 Juliet now, which is a fire control specialist. He had a doctorate degree. He had continued his education, took the GI Bill, and did that. And so, but he didn't want to do what officers did. He wanted to be with the soldiers and leading at the most critical point where the soldiers are. And that's what he wanted to do. The Army offers you the ability to chart your own career path based on all the opportunities. Sergeant Major, would you like to talk a little bit about how you've continued your education while you've been in?
Yes, sir. I came into the Army back in 1984, right out of high school. Didn't have any college, and spent 3 years in, got out for 7, used some of that money that I had earned for college to get an associate's degree. Came back into the Army after 7, like I said. On the outside, realized, as somebody said before, that I really loved it, missed it. So came back in 1994, and since that time, I've earned my bachelor's degree, I've earned 2 master's degrees, and earned my PhD. And all of that either through Army money or Army programs. So we talk about education. There's lots of educational opportunities in the Army. Educated soldiers are better soldiers. It's just, plain fact. In my career field right now, cyber, we have a Sergeant First Class in E7 who is just now finishing up her 3rd doctorate degree. Yes, education is important. There are a lot of opportunities in the Army right now for education. I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart, where you can come in, we'll pay you, we'll give you a job, and by the way, we'll give you money to go to school to earn education, and get civilian certifications on top of it, so that when when the time comes when you decide that this is no longer what you want to do in life, it really sets you up for continuing on to the next thing.
Yeah, I don't think that individual, I think you said, I don't think she's going to struggle finding a job with 3 doctorate degrees on the outside. Probably going to get a nice pay bump too, but I mean, but she's also going to leave with a retirement, which is just free money for your service for for forever. Now I know the blended retirement, all this other stuff, but basically it's money forever. And if someone joins when they're 18, they're ready to retire at age 38 and now move on to their second career with those certifications and the retirement and the dental and the healthcare for the rest, the rest of the time for you and your family, by the way. So it's outstanding. All right. So again, we're going to close this out. We've had just a great panel today.
Got another question, sir.
Oh, sorry. We got another question?
Yes, sir.
Looks like it's a follow-up question to the question before. So.
Okay. So even with more education, the Army doesn't compensate you for it unless you're an officer. No, I would say no. There's no extra compensation for those types of increased, education credentials. So, I'm an officer. I received my master's when I was a major. There was no extra compensation at that point for getting the master's. I didn't get paid anything or anything like that. Now, I'll tell you, across the force, and this goes for non-commissioned officers and commissioned officers, the Army's looking at your resume and saying, if you're ready for the next level, promotion to sergeant first class, promotion to master sergeant, promotion to lieutenant colonel, we want to know that you take education seriously, that this is something you're pursuing, and that you are learning through the Army's process of offering these opportunities. And yes, there's some people that I've served with that decided not to pursue a master's degree at major level, and it kind of hurt them a little bit as they went into the lieutenant colonel years, because the Army wants you to continue to develop, whether that be in Army courses like sergeant major programs that they're going to send you as part of that job, or what they expect you to do on your own. But again, they're paying you tuition assistance annually to take those courses. And then, of course, you also have the post 9/11 GI Bill, which offers another set of benefits that you can consider for use of that. So great questions. And because I agree, unless you're in the Army, it's hard to kind of understand how that all puts together. So again, I'd like to highlight for everyone who will be watching, the Army National Hiring Day campaign starts now with our information campaign. And really, it goes full bore between 30 June and 2 July. If you go to www.goarmy.com/hiring days, you can go on the website, put in just a little information, and a local recruiter will be in touch almost immediately. The Army is looking for 10,000 people to join nationwide in all 150 MOSs or career fields. There are 10 that I'm going to highlight real quick that are particularly special. Infantry, multiple launch rocket system crew member, which is a field artillery specialty. Fire support specialist, which is also a field artillery position. Air defense crew member. Explosive ordnance detachment technician. Crypto linguist. Cyber and electronic warfare. Chemical, biological, radio, and nuclear specialty, and then psychological operations. So again, please reach out to one of your local recruiting stations, either the www.goarmy.com/hiring days, or you can call 1-888-550-ARMY, ARMY, and reach out to us. So thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day, and go Army.